So, hi, I'm from the program in mathematics education, and so I'm going to talk a little bit kind of from a couple different perspectives. I was a TA for a course for the online master's called Learning Mathematics with Technology, and I use that data I'm using that data for my dissertation, and so this is kind of a brief glimpse of some of the things we looked at. So the first thing we're looking at how K-12 teachers use or can be supported in thinking about using technology in teaching mathematics. And so the first question is, what is technology? And you guys have all probably thought about this. I'm going to so I won't go deeply into it, but just acknowledge that in mathematics, technology has been used since the time of radio programs and onward from then. And so a lot of time and effort has gone into thinking about how technology can be used. But often what happens is that as teachers begin to try to implement technology use in their classrooms, the next kind of wave of interesting technology comes up and researchers kind of let it go. And so teachers are left with this kind of frustrating, like a lot of problems have come up for them and they haven't really learned how to implement it well. And so it's this kind of continuing wave of promise of technology and then a little bit of disappointment when it gets overwhelming. And so I'm going to focus specifically on the digital tools and resources that are available online. So in mathematics, there are different ways of thinking about using technology. So for teachers, a lot of times they use technology just because they're supposed to. The school or the district might have an initiative or a technology initiative, and so they're required to use technology a certain amount in their math teaching. Another reason might be to think about what the students are going to need in their future life, so 21st century skills, and how to adapt to new technologies as well as, being able to think and learn and communicate mathematically with technology. And then finally, specific to mathematics, is thinking about using technology as a practical expedient. So that can mean taking away some of the thinking or the rote thinking that was needed previously. So being able to do routine computations or operations or representations. And also for teachers, they can generate examples really quickly. They can find resources online. But we kind of want to push teachers towards thinking about how they can use technology in ways that are that support conceptualizations of mathematics that would be too difficult or impossible to do otherwise. And so this is really difficult to think about for teachers. And so that was kind of the focus of the course. And so when we're preparing this, we think about not just what these teachers need, but what what future teachers need as they're going into the classroom. And really any student needs experiences learning math with technology, so taking the time to think about what it means to think mathematically with this kind of outside tools and resources. And so also thinking really critically about the impact of technology on mathematics itself. So how using technology changes the field of mathematics, what we can do and how we can use it, but also how it changes mathematical thinking individually and the conceptualization of mathematical ideas. Conceptualization isn't just kind of the good things about it, but also can be the bad, because when you use different tools, it brings up new potential misconceptions about what a particular idea is. So in this course, Learning Mathematics with Technology, what we really focused on was supporting teachers in developing an internal framework for their decision making about using digital tools and technology in their mathematics teaching. And so students in the course were practicing teachers, and they ranged from lower grades through high school. And so we had them start out the class by doing an initial evaluation of 3 digital tools. And they selected those, but we're not really going to look at those, so it's not deeply into that. But then throughout the course, we worked on developing their questions about technologies, and then developed evaluation templates that they could use to kind of frame their thinking about why they would or would not use a technology. And this was to get at not just kind of general characteristics like whether or not it's exciting for the students to use, but also to dig into the mathematics of particular representation. And then we had them do a final evaluation of digital tools, and then I did interviews with about half of the class after the end of the semester and kind of dug into some of the ideas we had talked about throughout the semester. And so that's what this is going to be based on. And so just as an overview, what we asked them to look at in the evaluation template by the end of the semester, they were answering questions about what kinds of learning activities the students engaged in. So for example, if they were practicing or if they're exploring new concepts or if it was an assessment exercise, things like that. And then also to focus on what the mathematics content or learning goals were represented, how the tool represented the mathematical content, and then the role of technology, so the affordances and limitations of that. And then also thinking about aesthetics and student engagement, general instructional concerns, teacher concerns, and technology access and logistics. So instructional and teacher concerns were more like, how does this fit into the teacher's, general teaching strategies? So, and then, so some of the questions the teachers were concerned about were, would students be able to work at their own pace? Would they get immediate feedback? Could they get hints? Would the teacher be able to track their progress and things like that? So what I chose to focus on just for this presentation is something that ended up being a little bit more complex than I thought it would. Initially, the instructor and I thought that student engagement was pretty cut and dried, that a lot of the teachers meant, was it pretty? Did it have pretty sounds? Was it distracting? Would the students be able to use it? But we found that actually that when the teachers talked about student engagement, they actually talked about it in a kind of complex way. So sometimes that was, they were talking about the mathematical aspects or just general aspects or, instructional aspects. And so when I interviewed the teachers, I asked them specifically what were characteristics of a tool that they felt lent to the student engagement. So for general characteristics, almost all of the teachers said that it should be visually appealing and the students should be able to work at their own pace. So it shouldn't be kind of a time test. Most of the teachers said there should be clear instructions, there should be clear goals. So whether that's the applet itself or the teacher telling the students what the goals are. And then only a couple said, sound or user friendliness was important. When it came to instructional aspects, several of the teachers said that the students should be asked some form of questions. So that could be reflection questions at the end. Other teachers said it wasn't as important, but they did talk about the need for questions throughout to help the students as they explored, so they kind of had a pathway to follow. One of the teachers suggested two things that were important to them were to really get some buy-in. So what's in it for the student? How does the tool support the student's reason to actually connect with what's going on? And how does it make them curious about what's happening? And then also to hook the students, so kind of get on their level so that they pursue something further on their own, so they would feel excited to find out what's going on. And so as part of that, other teachers said students needed to feel part of the lesson, and there needed to be kind of this question of communication. So for example, one teacher said they need to be able to talk to other students about it. They need to have constructive classroom conversation, and there just needs to be some general interaction. So then for mathematical aspects of that, they talked about that the mathematical concept itself couldn't be too complex or too simple, because if it's too complex, the students get frustrated and they won't engage. Or if it's too simple, they get bored and then they won't engage. And so other teachers talked about mathematical representations need to be clear. Although one teacher said, sometimes it's good for that to be unclear, because then the students can dig in and as they're making sense of the representation, they're understanding the mathematics. And then other teachers said that the way that the students are manipulating the mathematical objects is important, and also how it's applied to real life is important. So that's all I have, and I guess we'll discuss this later. So thank you.
I'm done.